Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope you're having a good day today so far. Having a good week. My week has been so great. Uh, like probably one of the best weeks in a really long time. First, I decided to dye my hair. It's been a little over a year since the last time I colored it, and I always do the same color, but it was time to do it again because it had lightened back up to, like the dirty blonde color that I have. And so I decided to dye it. So I did that right before sitting down to record this. And I do like it's like an auburn brown, reddish brown. Anyway, I've done it. The first time I ever dyed my hair, I was a freshman in high school, and that was the color that I chose, and I really liked it. And everybody kept saying that it went really good with my skin complexion. And I just think it's a pretty hair color. So I'll post pictures on social media tomorrow, probably, or later on Thursday. Now, the other thing that happened was at work on Wednesday, I had a guy come in that worked for Pizza Hut and wanted to know if we could clean aprons. And I'm like, yeah, absolutely. And so he was like, well, I have about 10 aprons I would really, really need cleaned. And I was wondering if you would clean them in exchange for getting free pizza. He's like, I'll give you two large pizzas, whatever you want on them, and then you can get breadsticks or a cookie or brownies. And he's like, just whatever you want. So I was like, well, heck yeah. Free lunch for all of us girls? Definitely. So I did that, and we got them done today, and they were actually the general manager is the one who set up the deal and then had him come and talk to us about it. So anytime they clean their aprons, we get free lunch. So, and their brownies are amazing. Let me tell you, the pizza that you made, I got a meat lovers, but instead of tomato sauce, I did Alfredo sauce, and it was amazing. And so were the brownies. And lastly, the greatest thing to have happened this week, and it's such a blessing because money has been tight, definitely, for the last couple years, and it's just with prices getting higher, everything's getting worse. And I was really worried about Christmas. I have four kids to buy for. I have my nephew that I buy for, and then my oldest daughter also has a birthday on the 23rd. So it's like I'm like I don't know how I'm going to do Christmas. I just really don't know how I'm going to afford it. And I saw on Slightly Offensive, Elijah Shaper, that they were raising money through Gibson Go, and that they wanted to their loyal listeners um, give out Christmas giveaways, Christmas fund. And you just had to send them an email, telling them your situation and what you're going through and why it is you could use the help for Christmas. And so I did that. And on Monday, I got an email from his producer, Savannah, that they had chosen me for one of the Christmas funds. And that's $500 for Christmas. And I cried when I read that email because I felt really blessed. And that I've never won anything like that before, like maybe tickets to something on the radio or something, but I've never won something significant like that. And it really is a blessing to know that I can take care of Christmas. And while some people may spend $500-600 per kid, I can't afford that. So to be able to have $100 to spend on each kid, my four children and my nephew, and then to only have to worry about a birthday present for my oldest, it really feels great. So that's my week in a nutshell. It's been really great. And, there's 2 more days than the rest of my week. Maybe something else can happen and it can get even better. Who knows? So let's read our daily promise. And he that overcometh and keepeth my works unto the end, to him will I give power over the nations. And he shall rule them with a rod of iron, as the vessels of a potter shall they be broken to shivers, even as I received of my Father. Revelation chapter 2, verses 26 and 27. So even now, the believer tastes the fruit of this glorious promise. Since our life and soul are caught up in the very life and soul of our Lord, we gain every conceivable blessing. And as even now we are reigning at the Lord's right hand in the heavenly places, so then shall those who are of the name of the Lord reign in majesty and honor at his glorious coming. Rejoice in the Lord's goodness, O people of God. Okay, let's talk real quickly about the Kim Potter trial. If you don't know, Kim Potter is the police officer in Minneapolis who accidentally pulled her service weapon instead of her taser and shot and killed Dante Wright. And today, they did opening arguments on Wednesday. They did opening arguments, and I watched some of the jury selection and got kind of boring, so I stopped. But this article here is from Fox, and it's Dante Wright's victims remember slain Minnesota 20-year-old. And one of them quotes, "Karma's a B word." So it says here, justice for Dante Wright reads a marquee at Minneapolis's George Floyd Square, towering over what used to be a gas station across the street from where Derek Chauvin knelt on George Floyd's neck on Memorial Day 2020. At the fortified police station in Brooklyn Center, someone installed letters to spell out Dante Wright in all caps on a barricade erected around the perimeter. And prominent civil rights attorney Ben Crump is representing the slain 20-year-old's family following a shooting death at the hands of former police officer Kim Potter, whose trial began Wednesday. But Wright, before his death, left behind a trail of victims whose lives he upended with gun violence of his own. So two women, said that karma is a B word, told Fox News Digital Monday, unprompted and in separate interviews. The victims said they would have preferred Wright face consequences for his actions in a court of law, while also arguing that his own decision in attempting to flee a lawful traffic stop contributed in part to his shooting death on April 11th. Caleb Livingston was 16 years old when Wright allegedly shot him in the head at the Full Stop gas station on Minneapolis Lowry Avenue. Initially, doctors told Caleb's mother that he wouldn't survive surgery after the attack. He pulled through, but he can't talk or walk. He suffers from unresponsive wakefulness syndrome and requires around-the-clock assistance. I pray for everybody involved because there's a loss of life, Livingston's mother, Jennifer LeMay, told Fox News Digital. I know what Wright's parents are going through because I almost lost my son. Now, who Wright was before he was killed, it is what it is. In December 2019, Wright and a friend, Emma J. Driver, stayed over at a young woman's apartment after a night of drinking and smoking pot. The following morning, after Driver saw her slip $120 into her bra, Wright allegedly pulled out a handgun, choked her twice, and tried to rob her. After an ensuing struggle, Wright and Driver left empty-handed, unbeknownst to the victim, who believed they'd taken her hard-earned cash until she called 911 and found it still tucked away within her torn clothes. That person was evil, and he didn't care about me in that moment, the survivor told Fox News Digital on Monday. Video obtained exclusively by Fox News Digital earlier this year shows Wright playing with a handgun in her bathroom moments before the attempted robbery. He recorded it himself, and police seized it from his phone. It's ironic that he died the way he could have killed me, having a gun pointed toward him, whether it was accidental or not accidental. It made me start to think, how many more people could he have almost killed? Driver, an acquaintance of the victim from school, took a plea deal in the robbery case in December 2020. According to court documents, Wright died before his case went to trial. Wright's conduct led to 3 posthumous lawsuits against his estate, one in connection with Livingston's shooting, one with the robbery, and a third connection with carjacking that left a former classmate shot in the leg. 3 weeks before his deadly encounter with Potter, Wright had an accomplice allegedly shot former classmate Joshua Hodges in the leg and stole his car, according to the lawsuit. The accomplice's bullet allegedly broke his fibula, struck an artery, and left permanent damage. Wright was accidentally killed by a Brooklyn Center police officer on April 11, 2021, approximately 3 weeks after his crimes against Hodges, the civil complaint reads. After that accidental death, a false narrative began establishing Wright as a young person that young people looked up to, when in fact a warrant was in place for his violations of law on bond for a past crime. He had previously chosen a life of crime. Wright, an alleged gay member, was also accused of waving a black handgun near a Minneapolis intersection before ditching it and fleeing on foot, eluding responding officers. While police pulled him over in April, they found he had an active warrant in that incident and attempted to arrest him. Body cam video shows an officer, later identified as a trainee under the Potter's guidance, struggling and failing to apprehend Wright, who slipped back into the driver's seat. Okay, so I'm going to stop there because we know, the story of what happened. But her attorney did say the state can't prove any offense by playing the video, which shows an accident. Paul Ng wrote in a court filing ahead of the trial. The prosecution can't win on Officer Potter's shouts of taser, 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 words meaning she was going to use her taser so as to not harm Mr. Wright, not for reasons of her enormous after the fact regret of what could not have been a conscious act. So, I'm hoping that everything works out for Kim Potter. I do not believe that she should be charged. I do not believe she should spend any time in prison. It was clearly an accident, and to me, it would be a travesty of justice to see her put behind bars. Just like I don't believe that Amber Geiger should have been put in prison. These were all honest accidents, and if you start punishing people for mistakes and accidents, then you're not going to have no. It just wouldn't work. You can't do it. So I disagree with the way the justice system has worked quite often in the past. So hopefully, um, true justice is served here. So now speaking about court trials, Jussie Smollett, his trial was also going on. And the judge admonishes Jussie, telling him just answer his questions without arguing. So he's being very argumentative. Um, so Jussie Smollett became visibly irritated and testy with prosecution during his cross-examination Tuesday, leading Cook County Judge James Lynn to admonish the actor for his behavior. During cross, Special Prosecutor Dan Webb sparked a motion from Smollett when he questioned him about private messages sent between the actor and Abimbola Bola Osundario. Smollett wrote in one exchange to Osundario at around 12:41 a.m. on the day of the alleged attack, "Inward finally made it, just landed." "Was that 20 minutes to 1?" Webb asked the actor. A smirking Smollett leaned forward and corrected him mockingly, replying, "Yes, 19 minutes to 1." The New York Post reported. Getting hammered over the Instagram messages, the actor seethed, "Mr. Webb, with all due respect, you do not understand Instagram." According to the report, Smollett insisted that the prosecution was incorrectly portraying the conversation by not explaining that he'd also publicly lamented his long-delayed flight in a series of public posts to his Instagram story. "You're misrepresenting me to the jury and to the entire court, and it's not fair," he told Webb. "Without showing the actual Insta stories that I posted, they're not getting the full story, so they don't understand." "Look at me. I'm older," the prosecutor said. "I'll tell you right now, I do not understand Instagram. I'm asking you if the messages I'm about to show you are between Bola and you." "Just answer his questions without arguing," Judge Lynn interjected, chiding Smollett. "There was no fake attack," the angered actor insisted. "There was an update to my over 5 million followers." "It's difficult to answer yes and no when little bits are thrown in there that aren't true. When some things are true and some aren't, it's hard to say yes or no," Smollett later slammed prosecution. So the 39-year-old is facing up to 3 years in jail for allegedly lying to police. We know all of what happened. But then there's like lots of other stories about Jussie, and I'm not going to read them, but I'm going to read you the titles of these other articles. Smollett admits on stand to changing description of attackers from white to pale was being responsible. Jussie Smollett asked prosecutor to stop saying the N-word while quoting his text messages. Jussie Smollett says he didn't hand over a phone because Don Lemon texted that police didn't believe him. There was no hoax. Jussie Smollett claims under oath that he was driving, smoking a blunt, and texting in car with los Sundarios. Jussie Smollett testifies he did hard drugs, went clubbing, and to bathhouse with the accused attacker. Smollett's attorney claimed that judge lunged at her and demanded a mistrial. So, yeah, lots of crazy stuff happened there. I wish it could have been televised. Why on earth it wasn't? I don't know if it's for a lack of transparency. I don't know. And last thing about trials, Ghislaine Maxwell. I just thought that this was interesting because I noticed a lot of the stuff that we were hearing so far is stuff that we already know. There's nothing being new added to the story. But this, I never heard. And so I just thought it was interesting. This is from the Daily Wire from John Rigalizio, and I wasn't reading the other ones, I forgot. It says witness in Maxwell trial testifies that she saw photos of Maxwell pregnant. So one of the women who is accusing Ghislaine Maxwell of grooming and trafficking her testified in court that she once saw photos of the British socialite pregnant. While testifying Wednesday in the federal criminal trial of Maxwell, the former madam of billionaire and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein, the woman, who testified by her first name only, said that she had seen the photographs inside Epstein's home in Palm Beach, Florida. One of your memories about Ms. Maxwell is you claim that you saw a photograph of her in Epstein's house pregnant, correct? Maxwell's defense lawyer, Jeffrey Paluccia, asked the woman, Carolyn, Tuesday via the New York Post. Nude and pregnant, laying on the... Carolyn began to respond. And pregnant? Pagliuca. Pagliuca. I don't know how you say it. Yes, there was multiple pictures, nude photos. Pagliuca. Pagliuca. It's gonna drive me nuts if I can't remember how to say that. Then entered a photograph into the record as a defense exhibit. He approached Caroline and showed the photograph. That is not the photo, she responded. That photograph was not shown publicly in court, the Post noted. Another witness, Epstein's longtime pilot, David Rogers, was shown the same photo by the defense team later in the proceedings. Rogers identified the pregnant woman in the photo as Eva Anderson Dubin, a former Miss Sweden and Epstein's ex-girlfriend. Carolyn's testimony came more than a week after the testimony of Lawrence Paul Bosowski Jr., another longtime pilot of Epstein's private jets. Bosowski said during his testimony that in the 15 years he had worked for Epstein, he had not known Maxwell to be pregnant. So, I mean, I don't know if she is or she isn't, but she did further testify that she had some 100 encounters with Jeffrey Epstein between the ages of 14 and 18, and nearly all of them involved something sexual. So, that's what's going on in the Maxwell trial. Now, I have 3 other stories that I want to talk about, but I want to mention something of what I said on my episode from Monday and what I said was going to happen and how I was correct about it. If you'll remember, I was talking about the Roe v. Wade being overturned, and I was explaining that if that happens, it does not mean that abortion will be outlawed in all of the country like so many believe, but that it will go back to the states to decide whether or not they will allow abortion in their state. And I said, California, New York, possibly Virginia, your other blue states will continue to allow abortion all the way through up to and including after birth, and that they would go even further as to help women in states that can't get an abortion get to their state to be able to get one. And lo and behold, from the Associated Press, they sent out a tweet saying that California unveils plan to become an abortion sanctuary if the Supreme Court overturns Roe v. Wade. The proposal would include paying for travel, lodging, and procedures for people from other states who want to have an abortion. And I told y'all that that is what they would do. I said they will definitely do it because it was such a sacrament to them. So the California Future of Abortion Council, made up of more than 40 abortion providers and advocacy groups, released a list of 45 recommendations for the state to consider if the High Court overturns Roe v. Wade, the 48-year-old decision that forbids states from outlawing abortion. The recommendations are not just a liberal fantasy. Some of the state's most important policymakers helped write them, including Tony Atkins, the San Diego Democrat who leads the state Senate and attended multiple meetings. Democratic Governor Gavin Newsom started the group himself, and in an interview last week with the Associated Press said some of the report's details will be included in his budget proposals in January. Will be a sanctuary, Newsom said, adding he's aware patients will likely travel to California from other states to seek abortions. We are looking at ways to support that inevitability and looking at ways to expand our protections. Abortion, perhaps more than any other issue, has divided the country for decades along mostly traditional partisan lines. A new decision overturning Roe v. Wade, which could come next summer, would be the accumulation of more than 40 years of conservative activism. But Wednesday's report offers a first glimpse of how Democratic dominated states could respond and how the debate over abortion access would change. I'm telling you, more people are okay with the overturning of Roe v. Wade than are not. Even people who think that abortion should be rare, safe, and legal for those very, very rare occasions. This is not going to hurt conservatives if Roe v. Wade is overturned. I believe it's actually going to help. So, California already pays for abortions for many low income residents through the state's Medicaid program, and California is one of 6 states that require private insurance companies to cover abortions, although many patients still end up paying deductibles and co-payments. Next year, the state's independent legislative analyst's office predicts California will have a surplus of about $31 billion. That's great. So that's what's going on there. I'm not really interested in anything else that they have to say. So that's what's going on there. Now, Apple. Let's talk about Apple. This is not why I don't like Apple products, but I absolutely hate Apple. I hate iPhones. I don't like any of it. But Tim Cook signed a $275 billion deal with Chinese officials to placate China. The 5-year agreement was made when Cook made visits to China in 2016 to quash a host of regulatory action against the company, the report said, citing interviews and internal Apple documents. Cook lobbied Chinese officials who believed the company was not contributing enough to the local economy and signed the agreement with the Chinese government agency, making concessions to Beijing and winning key legal exemptions. Some of Apple's investment in China would go toward building new retail stores, research and development centers, and renewable energy projects, the report said. China is one of Apple's largest markets, with annual sales growth of 83% in the country in its fiscal fourth quarter. As part of the agreement, Apple promised to use more components from Chinese suppliers in its devices, sign deals with Chinese software firms, collaborate on technology with the Chinese universities, and directly invest in Chinese tech companies, the information report said. So, more ways in our phones to spy on us, but not our government, the CCP. That's just fantastic. I'm kind of moving kind of fast today because I don't have a lot of time, so I was making this a short episode. Another big company, Sony, fired PlayStation executive who was allegedly caught in a pedophilia sting. Lots of big things happening. So, let me shut this video down. A top Sony executive has been fired after he was allegedly caught in an amateur pedophilia sting operation posted on YouTube. George is it Cas Casiopo? Casiopo? I don't know. We're just going to call him George. The senior vice president from the team behind PlayStation allegedly tried to arrange a meeting with a 15-year-old boy, according to a video posted by the YouTube channel People vs. Preds. George has been at PlayStation for more than 8 years, according to his LinkedIn profile, and he most recently served as senior vice president of engineering. We are aware of the situation and the employee in question has been terminated from employment, Sony said Sunday in a statement to CNET. George didn't return the post request for comment. He has not been criminally charged. Adam Sharkey, a spokesman for the San Diego Police Department, said, quote, there is an active investigation being led by the San Diego Internet Crimes Against Children Task Force. People vs. Preds, an amateur sting operation meant to catch sexual predators who meet victims online, identified George as a 64-year-old who was allegedly trying to arrange a meeting with the 15-year-old boy at 4:30 a.m. In the video, the cameraman walks down a street toward a house that George, wearing a black PlayStation 5 t-shirt, is standing in front of. The cameraman, referring to George as Jeff, asks him who he's planning on meeting. We can have a conversation or I can call the cops, the cameraman says as George turns around and begins to walk back into the house. George closes the door to the house and the cameraman then begins shouting threats that he'll call the police. The video has racked up more than 112,000 views since it was streamed live Friday. The Post could not access the alleged chat logs between George and People vs. Peds, but CNET reported that George contacted the decoy minor on Grindr, a dating app for gay, bi, trans, and queer people. The two exchanged pictures, and George told the decoy that his name was Jeff. He then allegedly gave his address in order to have sex with the purported 15-year-old boy, according to CNET's review of the logs. I watch Mike Fox is who I watch on YouTube that does the sting operations and catches predators. And he does a really good job, and he has a Patreon. And all the money that he makes through the Patreon just pays for travel expenses, lawyers, and everything because he uses lawyers to make sure that whatever he's doing will hold up in a court of law, and also what he's posting on YouTube to share with people that he's not going to get in any trouble. Like, what can he post and what can he say? And he always will review other people's videos like that. And a lot of times they'll threaten to call the cops unless they stay and talk to them. And they'll have a conversation and then they let them go on their merry way. And Mike Fox always calls the cops. Every time, turns over all the evidence, because the point of doing this is to get sickos off the streets to protect kids, not clicks on your YouTube video. And if that's all you're doing it for, then you really should just move on because I guess go ahead and keep doing it because then someone else can come along and find out who these people are and call the cops and get them put in jail since you won't do it. I hate when people won't call the cops. But I just thought it was interesting anyway. But if you like to watch videos like that, go check out Mike Fox on YouTube. All right, last article. I wanted to read a Louder with Crowder article because I felt like I needed a laugh, right? And they're usually pretty funny. But like the stories aren't funny, but the way they're told are funny. This one, however, is by Joseph Gunderson, and I believe it's going to be a more serious article, not a comedy of any type. But teacher says the unvaccinated should die from COVID or be shot. So at this rate, I don't believe a single day will go by in which one cannot find some proof that public school teachers are awful and the entire school system should be burnt to the ground. The list of terrible people we've covered here at louderwithcrowder.com is long and as long as demented as one might expect. Teacher caught indoctrinating students on the first day of school. Antifa teacher brags about indoctrinating students. Teacher brags about replacing the American flag with the pride flag. Teacher melts down because she can't teach CRT. Teacher says banning CRT is literally the Hunger Games. Teachers and staff receive lap dances from students. Teacher taught 6-year-old she is evil because she is white. Teacher says expecting students to behave is white supremacy. Teacher sings about calling parents terrorists, and professor argues for a nicer term for pedophiles. Yeah, and those aren't all of them. Let's go ahead and add this bloodthirsty succubus to the list as well. So this is from Libs of TikTok. Pennsylvania teacher writes on Facebook that people who have religious exemptions should die from the virus or be shot. Screw this guy and screw them all who are all about hiding behind religious exemptions because they don't want anybody to tell them what to do. People tell you what to do all the time, and you do it. This is such BS. He and his like deserve whatever comes their way, including losing jobs, getting sick, and perhaps dying from this virus. But in the meantime, he's going to put all the people around him in danger. I don't know why the GOP doesn't just take those guns they profess to love so much and just start shooting all of their constituents who think this way. It would be quicker and ultimately safer than putting me and my friends and family at risk. What an evil, miserable, retarded person, honestly. Um, and by the way, last I checked, the new one, Omicron, that's been going around, that's been everybody who's had the Fauci ouchie that's been getting sick. Those of us who haven't, we've been doing just fine. I have not been sick. And outside of allergies and sinuses, I've been great. So, anyway, I didn't really think anyone could top calling parents terrorists or getting lap dances from students, but calling for the death of everyone who doesn't feel it necessary to inject a chemical substance into their veins because you're a scared little shit is a new level of extreme. And she does it while denigrating the notion of religious exemption, which just goes further to show the kind of vitriol the left has for those of us who practice a faith. What's more, this proponent of mass murder isn't just a teacher. She's also a board member of the National Education Association, a national teachers union. She's basically everything I despise wrapped up into one lowly package. This is the exact kind of creature who fights to protect the kind of individuals listed above. This is why they do it. They are all cut from the same detestable cloth. This nation is currently facing several challenges, and one of these internal struggles swirls around the entire idea of the country, where we've come from, who we are now, and what the future holds. Is this country irredeemably racist? Is socialism the wave of the future? Should pedophiles be welcomed into your home with open arms? For me, the answer to all of these questions is hell no. But many educators might read those questions, nod their heads, and giggle like witless idiots. The schools and those who teach in them are a large part of what ails this country. They are the mad scientists infecting your children with a brain disease meant not only to destroy who they are, but to destroy this entire country. Definitely, I would agree with that. I absolutely would. And I said this was the last article, but what we're talking about, it made me remember something that I heard. As Austria locks down its unvaccinated people, critics say EU leader supports throwing out the Nuremberg Code. So, the Nuremberg Code is a set of research ethics principles for human experimentation created by the U.S. versus Brandt Court as one result of the Nuremberg trials at the end of the Second World War. So, it stemmed from that and lists all the different atrocities that Nazi Germany was involved in. So, the Nuremberg Code was created for because of what happened during the Holocaust. Um, Ursula von der Leyen, president of the European Commission, told the press on Wednesday that she believes it to be both, quote, understandable and appropriate, end quote, for EU member nations to consider mandatory Fauci ouchies. This after it became clear that a full third of Europeans have yet to undergo the jab, according to the BBC. At the Brussels press conference, she addressed the issue of mandatory Fauci ouchies, saying the matter, quote, needs discussion. This needs a common approach, but it is a discussion that I think has to be led, end quote. This in light of the Omicron variant, which has been now detected in 12 different member nations of the EU. This led some to offer a comparison between forced Fauci ouchies and the provisions in the Nuremberg Code. In November, Austria announced that mandatory Fauci ouchies would be on the horizon, with the government preparing the legal groundwork for a general mandate to come in February 2022, according to The Guardian. In Austria, those over 12 who are not jabbed are currently almost completely locked down, only allowed outside for absolutely essential tasks like food or medical appointments. It was after this that von der Leyen made her remarks, leading some to say that she is in favor of scrapping provisions in the Nuremberg Code. According to that code, drafted after the atrocities committed by Nazis during the Second World War, people must be allowed to give consent for experimental medical treatment. Prominent critics such as Dr. Jordan Peterson consider forced Fauci ouchies under severe penalty to be analogous to scrapping the Nuremberg Code on human medical experimentation. The reasoning for this is that many believe that the Fauci ouchie, barely a year old, has not been proven entirely effective against the illness or necessary to be applied to children, who CDC data shows are at substantially less risk than their adult counterparts, specifically the elderly and those with accompanying comorbidities. So there you go with that. And you think that's crazy. Okay, you think it's crazy to think that they want to scrap the Nuremberg codes just so they can force these on people. And there's people aren't getting it for good reason. One of the reasons is we don't know long-term effects, right? This is why people don't want to do it. This episode's going longer than I intended it to, but that's fine. This article here from newswars.com says physicians in the United Kingdom claim that up to 300,000 people in that could suffer from heart-related illnesses caused by a phenomenon called post-pandemic stress disorder, or PPSD. This comes amid renewed skepticism over the prevalence of Fauci ouchies causing heart-related adverse reactions following the release of the documents from the FDA from Pfizer, right? It was a FOIA request. So they're saying, according to the Evening Standard, physicians have warned that there could be a 4.5% rise in cardiovascular cases across the nation because of post-pandemic stress disorder, primarily affecting those between 30 and 45. Quote, PPSD is a very real problem on a massive scale, as well as the condition itself with all its immediate problems. One of the biggest collateral issues is the effect it can have on heart health. Okay, so 300,000 people, right? And it's not just that. That is how they are explaining the heart conditions of about 300,000 people. It's not from the Fauci ouchie. It's PPSD. They just made up a disorder to cover for that. Not only that, they're covering for the kids too. Well, I can't find the article that talked about it, but there were any of the heart issues on children from the Fauci ouchie were being blamed on weather, and climate change. So it's crazy. But I mean, I can't be shocked. This is the kind of stuff that they do, and nothing they do shocks me anymore, truthfully. But the fact that they just want to, and the biggest reason they want to get everyone forcefully get the Fauci ouchie is because they know that there's issues. They're worried about us seeing what those issues are, but if we're all forced to get it, there is no control group anymore, and you don't know what's causing what. But people, I think it's about 80 million, are not getting the Fauci ouchie and have not gotten it yet, and it's probably going to stay that way. You're going to have a very hard time forcing people to get it against their will. The strong-willed ones that at this point still have not gotten it, you're never going to get them to get it. I can promise you that. And hopefully we don't end up like Australia in their quarantine camps for not getting it. Absolutely crazy what they're doing over there. But that's exactly what they'll do here to us if we just let them do it. Fortunately, for all you weak ones out there who can't stand up for what's right and can't stand on your principles and your convictions and tell people no, and you just do what you're told, you go along to get along because you're too scared to do anything, you're very fortunate you have people like me, like my friend Scott, like Steven Crowder, Michael Knowles, The Daily Wire, Elijah Schaffer, Blaze TV, Tucker Carlson. You're fortunate you have people like us that are fighting for you, even though you're too weak to fight for yourself. I know it's not easy, but at some point you just got to not care what anybody thinks or says anymore and just do what you know is right. Anyway, I'm going to leave this here for right now. I hope you had at least a significantly good time hanging out with me today. Please don't forget you can go find me on Spotify, Anchor, Google Podcast, Apple Podcast. You can subscribe to the podcast. You can leave a review. I say podcast so many times. I say that word so many times when I'm doing my outro. Also, you can find me on YouTube. Go watch, like my videos, share them around with people you think need to know it, and might also the ones that will enjoy it, right? And don't forget to subscribe. That is the biggest thing that you can do for me. And the support really means a lot. And then click the notification bell so you know every time I upload a new video. And if you haven't done it yet, go subscribe to the Scott Ford Show and check out his latest episode where me and him have a really great conversation. And hopefully soon I can get him back on mine. I will have to set that up because I would like that. Anyway, thank you so much for spending some of your time with me and supporting me. And I hope you have a good rest of your day. God bless.